All right, so welcome to part 3 of Organize Your Organization. I'm Gerald Hutchinson, your business accelerator with Action Coach Business Coaching. And how do you run a marathon? You run a marathon one step at a time. So we've done a lot of work so far with our mission statement, our culture statement, our team, our customers, getting organized with SMART goals and our computers and our passwords, etc. Now it is time to take a look at our physical office space or physical shop space. And we'll start by looking at the physical layout. Things may have accumulated, as they often do in a business or a shop, and things just aren't necessary to be there anymore. And that clutter reduces your ability to process all the information. It could be called noise as opposed to signal. And so start by getting rid of any obvious clutter that you've got. You may have to do a purge, right? And there's a method that I learned in Six Sigma project management training. Six Sigma is what Toyota uses to reduce the number of defects in their production, which is why they have such high quality production. And the Toyota production method has been adopted by Ford and Chrysler, GM, plants the world over. And one of the outgrowths of that is the 5S method. Now, the 5S method was really a Japanese derivation, but it's been translated in English. And here's what the 5 S's are: sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and self-discipline to sustain. So let me talk about those in a little bit more detail. Sort means to choose what's really important. What are the things that must be around that really help you get the job done? And what are things that may be a sentimental memento, but it's just not that important? These are things you have to make decisions about, and you may have to let them go. Donate them to somebody else, or just throw them out if they're in fact worthless to anyone else but you. The Marie Kondo method, she wrote a book called Spark Joy, and the idea is that you don't get rid of something unless when you hold it, it sparks joy. So look at your office or your shop and get rid of things. You may need to look at your inventory and say, you know what, these things just haven't moved. And you have money tied up in your wholesale cost. And if the things aren't moving, then you got to figure a way to get rid of them. It may require you to take a big discount on them, or maybe you want to try putting them on sale in some sort of online form. But nonetheless, we used to call them dogs when I ran a retail store. We call it get rid of the dogs, so we can take that money that's tied up in them and reinvest it in something that will sell, and we can get more turns. So sort, first step in the 5S method. Secondly, set in order. Put things in the best place to make the best use of them so that you can get them when you need them. These can be like all the cleaning products in one place. If you've got a copier, you want to have your extra ink, your extra paper, a production area, perhaps with envelopes and staplers and hole punchers and notebooks, spare notebook, 3-ring binders and dividers, if you need that sort of thing, as I do in my business. But put things in the place where it makes sense so that it's easy to use them. Next thing is to shine, which means to clean and tidy up on a regular basis. So you got to have a schedule to do that. And you'll know what the right interval is, but if you don't put it on the calendar, it's likely not to get done. The fourth S is standardize, and that is put things in standard places so that actions are repeatable and habits can be made. If everybody knows that when you're through with the broom, it goes back in this specific place. If you're through with the stapler, if you're through with the the cooking implements, this is where they go. A place for everything and everything in its place, as my grandmother said. This is the way that you keep organized, and you don't have to think about where is it, because all right? So you've got to standardize it. And then the fifth step is to sustain that through self-discipline. So that means that instead of just giving yourself permission to not put it back in the standard place, you actually force yourself to do it. And there's some sort of common idea that it takes 21 days to make a habit. Well, it actually takes about 3 times that amount of time. About 60, 66 days, somewhere in there. Depends on the individual and how methodical and conscientious they are. But it takes a while, and you've got to exert self-discipline so that you can, in fact, standardize, make those habits. A habit means it's unconsciously competent. You're able to do it without thinking. And so take your physical office space, take your shop, take the physical locations that you're in, and purge, declutter, make it so that it has a freshness to it. And it may involve new furniture or new decor. All right, next is to update your tools. The gadgets, the tools, it may be the technology that you use, they're always evolving. Maybe it's time to get rid of that office chair and get something different. Maybe it's time to retire that old pressure washer and get a more powerful one, or with more adjustability. Maybe it's time to take a look at the applications, the software that you have on your computer, and to make sure that you've got the updated versions that are likely to work better with less stress. So make sure you're updating your tools. If you have stuff that's stored away in a back closet or the warehouse or just some storeroom that is just no longer useful, and you just don't know, like, why are we keeping this? Get rid of it. You don't have to think about it anymore. That frees you up. Now, organization, a huge part of organization is making lists. There's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto. Recommend it to everyone. Surgeons, you'd think they know what they need to do when they go into the surgical suite. To perform an appendectomy or an open heart surgery or some sort of orthopedic procedure. But in fact, it's been found that if the surgical suite includes a checklist of the preparation before the surgery, the things that are done during the surgery, and the things that are done after the surgery before the patient is taken away to their own room, that this reduces medical blunders dramatically. Same thing in commercial airline cockpits, that there are checklisted procedures that they must go through before takeoff. If they encounter bad weather, if something unusual happens, there are checklists. Make sure they're getting the job done correctly. So if it works for them, it can work for you. Do your checklist at the end of every day before you close the door. to your office or your shop, make a checklist of the things you need to get done the next day. And then the next day, go through your checklist. Anything that that didn't get done needs to be put on the list to do again tomorrow. And of course, you do want to make some prioritization of your checklist. I usually use A's, B's, and C's. A's are the things that I must get done. It's typically 1 to 3 things, no more than. I always like to think, what is the one thing? There's a great book called The One Thing by Keller. And it is, what is the one thing, the most highly leveraging thing on my list of all the things that I could be doing that's going to move my business forward the most? All right. Manage your personal energy, getting organized. If you are tired and dragging and you don't have the energy to get the job done, then ways to get organized are to set up your morning rituals so that you in fact have the energy to go through the day. Now, let's roll back. What happens before the morning? It's sleep. So what are the rituals that you need to engage in order to get enough rest so that you can wake up rested and engage in your morning ritual and then get have enough energy to get the job done? There's a great book by Hal Elrod called Miracle Morning, and he talks about 7 different things that you can do to prepare yourself. And it involves things like splashing water on your face when you wake up and drinking some water to replace the water that you've lost through breathing all night long, and doing some physical exercise with cardio, and writing your affirmations, and taking some time to meditate, just to kind of sit in poise and clear your mind. And then looking at your checklist. You know, these sorts of rituals, and you've got to find the ones that work for you. Just because it worked for Hal Elrod and he talks about it being a miracle doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for you. But you know, you take these models and you figure it out. And it just puts you in a much better place. It allows you to organize your life. You're prepared. Your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical energy is prepared to encounter the day and make the best use of it. And the same thing, to get ready for bed. Most people are spending too much time on devices, and it does impact their ability to get to sleep and to stay asleep. So be careful about that, folks. All right. So, this is sort of a meta part of organization, and that is, what do you need to do to stay organized? And it may be Friday afternoon before you close up shop, so to speak. It may be every other Monday morning you set aside a certain amount of time that you take a look at the bigger pictures, you review your SWOT analysis, you review kind of where are we in terms of my 90-day campaign, in terms of creating the culture that I need to do, in terms of 5S'ing my shop, my system. And you take that time. If you put it on your calendar, it is much more likely to get done than if you don't. You can have good intentions. Let me tell you, I've coached a lot of executives, and they've had a lot of good intentions to do a lot of things. And I ask them, yeah, but is it on your calendar? And they look sort of embarrassed, and they go, no, it's not. I say, well, if you put it on your calendar, it'll get done. And they go, yeah, you're right. A great example is they often want to spend more time with their staff, more one-to-one conversations, and they don't do it. So putting it on their calendar makes it get done. So I've used a lot of different references. There's a lot of content out there, but I have been, I'm hopeful that you got some nuggets of organization out of this experience, and it's been my pleasure to be able to provide it to you. My 15-minute limit is coming up, and so I'm going to close it out right now. Please contact me if you have any questions.